Back to Foodie Down Bronx. I'm your host, M, the Hungry Dominican. Our first guest is a vegan life coach and activist from the South Bronx. She is also the author of the Boogie Down Vegan, a vegan cookbook available online. Welcome to the show, Darriel McBride.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Darriel, for coming to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy
Thank
to be
you.
here.
Okay, so we have a couple of things I want to, talk about. Actually, a few things I want to talk about. Let's start off with the Boogie Down Vegan Puerto Rican, which is an extension of your own personal Instagram account. This one, of course, has more of a specific mission, and I think I kind of gave it away when I said the word vegan.
Yeah.
So, but in your bio, you put that you are a hood vegan and vegan life coach.
Yep.
Now, being a vegan life coach, for me, I think what I want to know is kind of like, what's the first piece of advice you would give anyone who's looking to transition into a vegan lifestyle? Because having experienced it myself, it's not super easy, but once you get into the flow,
Right.
you can kind of just, you can rock it.
Exactly.
So what's the first thing you would tell someone besides, are you sure you want to do this?
Right. Yeah, I usually start off with just saying, like, what are your goals and why? Like, I think this doesn't necessarily limit you to veganism either. This is just with anything in life, because once you start something, you have to remember why you're doing it. Otherwise, you'll just fall off. So I asked them, like, what are your goals? Do you want to lose weight? Do you want to clear your skin? Do you want to, I don't know, just feel better spiritually, work on your digestive system? Just like really honing in on what it is that their goals are. And then I tell them, don't rush this process, because that was one of the mistakes that I made that I wish I could have some kind of guidance on, which I never did. Like, I didn't know anybody that was vegan when I went vegan 3 years ago. So I would tell them, don't rush this process, like, take your time with it, because if you do, your body will react a different way.
Right.
And like, if you've grown up eating like meat your whole life, or dairy or chips, and then you go vegan overnight, I don't know if your body is gonna respond as well as it should. And so for me, like, that's what I did. I went vegan overnight. I was like, okay, saw one video and I was like, oh no, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
And my body definitely, it took a toll on my body, negatively and positively. So I always just urge people, like, don't rush this process, because it'll happen for you if it's meant to happen.
So you did it overnight, literally, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So did you find yourself since you had committed to it, did you find yourself just struggling through it, or did you reset and say, you know what, I can't do it? Maybe for a few days you did it, and then you were like, hard stop, let me just start this again, in order to sort of slowly build up to it. How did you deal with that change?
Amazingly, I did not. I literally went vegan and did not look back.
Okay.
Like, it's going on 3 years now. My anniversary is on the 4th of January.
3 years,
So,
wow.
yeah, 3 years ago on January 4th, I was like, okay, I'm going vegan. And I actually, in the beginning, was taking notes every day and writing down, like, how I was feeling. And I remember, like, on the 6th, I was like, this vegan thing is cool.
Yes.
Because, like, my whole life, I ate KFC and Popeyes and, like, Chicken Spot and, like, all this stuff. But I don't know, it just, something was working for me, and I just did my research. And that's one thing I also tell people to do, is that you have to know what you like. And you don't necessarily have to give up so much, because like half of our diet is most likely vegan already, in terms of like rice and beans, like the Latino community, we eat a lot of that already. So for me, I was like, oh, I just have to cut out some cheese, which I barely eat anyway. For me, it was easy. For a lot of people, it's not. So that's kind of what I would say for people as well. Like, you have to just kind of keep track of what it is that you like, and not necessarily punish yourself and feel like I have to cut out everything.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah, I noticed that too. When I was doing my thing over the summer, I realized that so much of what I already eat and consume is classified as vegan.
Right.
So it wasn't super hard, but just like you, I went into it like overnight. I did not transition slowly. I had put it on social. I was like, I actually did it for many, many reasons, but the one thing that I definitely wanted to do was challenge myself.
Yeah.
And so when I put it out on social, I made some Instagram stories, and I hit the send button, and I'm like, oh man, there's no turning back.
Yep. People are gonna hold you accountable for that.
100%.
Yeah.
And so I found it rough, like you, to do that transition. I didn't build up to it. I literally just switched over. I had like a huge steak meal or something the last day, right? And then like
I'm
I
going
just
out
like,
with a bang.
right, exactly. And I jumped into it. But what did you feel physically? I mean, yes, it was hard, but I also felt like, as difficult as it was for me, I was kind of hyped doing it, because number one, I announced it publicly, so there was that accountability. But number two, I was sort of like planning my meals in advance, so I knew what I was expecting.
Right.
So what did you actually feel physically when you just jumped into it? How did your body react to it?
Well, initially I felt great. Like I felt like I had a lot more energy. Prior to being vegan, I was really tired. Like I would wake up feeling very dizzy. My vision would be really blurry. And I would just feel lightheaded. You know how like you get off of a bike and you kind of have to recollect yourself? Every day waking up felt like that for some reason. And then when I went vegan, I woke up super energized. I was like getting through the day. I started to have like a spiritual awakening in a sense. Like I just felt more peaceful, more in tune with my surroundings, with nature. And then I did definitely start breaking out, but that was because, like I said, like I just cut out everything. And my diet prior was very poor, lots of chocolate. And I just didn't know any better, you know? Before going vegan, you definitely have to go on a cleanse, right? Because you're basically resetting your body to do what it needs to do and like work on the optimal level.
Right.
So I started getting acne, and it was a really horrible, horrible process. But even then, I was like, I feel so great inside. I don't look it right now, but I feel amazing.
It's like it'll get there.
Yeah.
Right?
So I was like, you know what? My body's just detoxing, and that's exactly what happened. Like my body was just purging all of the junk, all of the McDonald's, the KFC. And then my skin just started to improve, and I just continued to feel better. I felt amazing, energized, and I got stronger too. I ended up doing like 40 push-ups one day. It was so random, but it was because of a contest.
So full of energy.
Someone was like, okay, I'll give you $100, like if you can do 100 push-ups. And I was like, all right. And I did 40. I was like, I could not do like one push-up prior. So, you know, it was interesting, like how my body just started to surprise me, and I learned more about myself. So
that's so true. That's what I tell people, because I was getting some flack from some friends of mine that I met through Instagram, and I'm actually part of a steak club, which is very counterproductive, needless to say. And so when I was doing it, I had like kind of just joined them. Like I was like, I was like a rotating chair sort of, and then I finally officially joined them like 3 weeks before I went vegan. And so they were like sending me like a bunch of like DMs and text about like steaks and burgers and stuff, like good luck on your whole thing. But you know, just sort of like, you know, just, you know, giving me flack. But I told them that I actually did feel more, I felt better. My energy, like you said, went through the roof. I did feel less sluggish. I actually got less hungrier throughout the day. Because I also did some intermittent fasting while I was doing it. Which actually came to me a little bit easier because of the fact that I wasn't eating these foods that would just perpetually get me hungry. So I could actually cut my meals pretty early.
You were sustaining yourself the right way.
I was. And so I really felt wonderful. And then, you know, I gave myself 2 months and I came back from it, and then all of a sudden energy just goes down. I mean, I've acclimated. I'm good now, of course. It's been months since I've come back to it. But you speak about that, and I can relate to it on every level. So I always tell people, I'm like, you have no idea how amazing you will feel. And I actually want to kind of revisit it every so often because it's just a great recharge.
It is.
But being from the Bronx, there are some limitations when it comes to being a vegan because of our food accessibility and the fact that, you know, we're always slapped with the label of being the unhealthiest borough, which, you know, I think the narrative is just completely misconstrued.
Absolutely.
I do not believe we are the unhealthiest. I just feel that there is a lack of access to those healthy foods. What type of limitations did you find being a vegan in the Bronx?
I think for me, until recently, it was just hard to be able to go to one place and get everything I needed. And for me, I'm like a very like nitpicky kind of vegan because there's different types. There's like the plant-based ones, and I consider myself a plant-based vegan, so I typically don't eat any processed foods. Today, obviously, you know, I'll bring like cupcakes in, which is super processed, but that's like my cheat.
Always make an exception for cupcakes.
You know what I mean? Like, you gotta treat yourself. But like, I just, you know, finding clean foods, like organic foods, is very hard for me to find that. And this was when my skin also was kind of going through its moment. So I was like, I have to eat very clean. And in order to find those foods, I had to go to these markets that were like in Manhattan or in Harlem. So for me, I was like, this sucks. Like, we shouldn't have to leave the Bronx just to get a basic necessity, like things that we are entitled to. Like everyone here is entitled to clean water and healthy food. But it was challenging just to have to kind of commute back and forth all the time, carrying my groceries. Now, like, I found Target to be really reliable. They've actually gotten more vegan stuff in the past 2 years.
They have,
so
yes, right.
To me, that's very hopeful and promising because, like, when I first went vegan, they didn't have much. So that was the biggest challenge, was that, and just like if I'm out and about and I don't have time to like eat something in between, like where am I gonna go? The bodega, I'll get like some sunflower seeds maybe.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or like plátano chips. Like those have been my safe haven.
You know what? Yes.
Honestly, and like like that stuff is cool and everything, but I think just like the inconvenience of it is what makes people not want to be vegan or not stay vegan, because it can be inconvenient in that sense. But again, when we go back to how you feel, that's really the driving force. Like I feel so great that I'm willing to inconvenience myself and go like 15 minutes to this place to go get this item. You know.
I admire that you said that, because I think people need to hear that and understand that it's like you should go out of your way for your own health, right? I mean, yes, not everyone can, and it's super easy to just walk out your door and find all these other options that aren't as healthy. But I think it's important for people to understand that yes, if you have to travel, then just do it for your own benefit. Right. But it's also super unfair to us, is it not? Because we shouldn't have to necessarily go out of our way to find these healthy products. And I was living in Brooklyn for a little bit, and I've mentioned it a few times on the show, maybe like 1,000 times or something. But I realized that it's way too easy to walk around there and find all these great spots. Yep. I do live in a very populous neighborhood, so I do have a little bit more options than maybe most other people do in the Bronx in general. So I could walk into like a health store, and I could get myself a shake. But you walk around the Bronx in general, and that's not exactly the narrative, right? And I feel like it's super, super, super unfair that we have to do that. But because of that, because of the lack of resources, is that why you were inspired? And I want to talk more about this in detail, but is this why you were inspired to publish your own book?
Yeah. I mean, it was one of the reasons. Like, I hadn't really thought about it. I was kind of just doing the vegan thing for myself, really invested in myself. But a lot of people were just like messaging me on Instagram or like on Facebook and asking questions because they saw how much it was impacting me positively, and people were curious. They're like, I see you posting about this, and I'm trying to be healthy. It's a lot of information to tell people. Like, we could sit here for hours talking about how to go vegan and like what to do, what not to do. And I was like, I can't keep doing this like while I'm like working and like going to school. So I was like, you know what, maybe I should just put it all in one place, have people buy it for a very like low price, and also teach people how to navigate it the way I have been, like in the hood, you know what I mean? Like being able to go grocery shopping with just $20. And I've managed to do that very successfully and haven't felt like I've been starving myself. But that was why I did it, mostly for my community. It wasn't really for me, because I know there's a lot of people who wanted that information, and the best way to lay it out to them is in a book that's very like easy to read, has recipes that they're familiar with, that make them feel like, you know, I can do this then.
Right.
So that's why I made it.
So your book is actually self-published.
Yes, it is.
Which is awesome.
Thank you.
I have to say, it's really awesome. Just very quickly, what avenues did you use to self-publish? How did you make it happen? I know a lot of writers. I love artists. And the one thing well, not the one thing, but many things that I hear is, oh, it's so hard to get my story out there. Yeah. And you know, they know as much as I do that you can self-publish, but not many people are actually inspired to do so. Yeah. What process did it take to actually get your book self-published?
Well, it took me a while. I was actually in South Africa teaching English last year. And so a lot of people were kind of like, where's your book? Like, when is it coming? And I'm like, I'm trying to do a million things at once. Right. And I was trying to find the best avenue to do it. I wanted something that people could just click and download. Right. And I heard about something called PayHip, this website that you can literally just upload a document or upload any type of thing you want to sell, and people can just go there and enter their information and then purchase it, and that's it. So I basically just created like a format on Google Drive and just turned it into a PDF. I decorated it. I took all the photos in my cookbook by myself. So like everything on my Instagram are pictures that I took of my food, and I just created a little cover, and I was like, okay, upload this.
That's so awesome. Yeah, it's like I spent so much time having similar conversations, and you just described it so simple. Yeah. And that's I mean, that's as simple as it is, right? Yeah. You just have to sort of take the time out to publish your information. And I mean, I love that it's self-published, but I think more importantly, I love that it's coming from the Bronx. Yeah. Because again, it's easy to make a very general vegan cookbook, and which actually I looked up so many recipes that initially, before I jumped into it, I was so scared to do. Because it's not that it's difficult to make any of these recipes, it was just like, they were just offering me dishes that I didn't care for.
Right.
Nothing that really reminded me of where I came from.
Exactly.
Right?
And that was kind of my mission with the book.
Right. And that's what I've noticed with your book. It's
Yeah.
it's tailored to exactly who it should be tailored to,
Yep.
which makes it that much more unique in the book, the book world. We're going to take a quick break, but I do want to talk a little bit more about the book because I want to actually get into some of the recipes inside of your book. So, all right, guys, grab yourselves a snack. Foodie Down Bronx. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Foodie Down Bronx. I'm your host, M, the Hungry Dominican. I'm joined on set by vegan life coach, activist, and self-published author Darriel McBride. So we have right here some of your vegan cupcakes. Before we went to break, I said I wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the recipes in your cookbook. So we have some chocolate with vanilla cupcakes right here.
Yes.
And these are one of the recipes in your book.
There's a similar one in there. The only difference is that the frosting is not vanilla, it's a chocolate frosting.
Okay.
So same thing.
Which is like a great thing.
Chocolate on chocolate, like
Right?
you can mix it up. There's so much variety.
That's awesome. So is it safe to say that you have a sweet tooth? This is why you had
I
to...
do. That's actually one of the things I was terrified of. Like before I went vegan, I loved ice cream. I would eat a whole carton of Ben & Jerry's while in college.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Every day.
Totally.
It's terrible too, but
it's not a problem.
I like my sweet tooth has never gone away, but I was inspired to just be healthier because my dad has diabetes and my grandmother on my mom's side. So it's something that's plaguing our community, but also me personally.
Right.
So I was like, I gotta just change my life. But I try to limit the sweets that I eat, but still love them.
I find that vegan ice cream is incredible.
It is, honestly.
It's super great.
It is. It doesn't make my stomach bubble like
Yeah.
the dairy does.
For years I've I kind of know that my body doesn't love dairy. I mean, look, dairy isn't good for us really in general. Or an overabundance of it is not good for you. But I ignored it. I was like, oh, whatever. Once I had vegan ice cream, I was like, this is it. Even if I go back to being an omnivore, I'm gonna stick with vegan ice cream because that to me is like super perfect. So you have this cookbook, and one of the main arguments that I hear from a lot of people, and I was actually told myself before I jumped over to doing my whole 2-month thing, was that you don't get enough protein in a vegan diet. We both know that's not true, but people have this assumption that you don't get enough protein. Could you tell me where you can actually find protein in a vegan diet? Because there's so many places that you can.
Yeah, honestly, everywhere. Like my majority of my diet is very high in protein, and sometimes I eat too much of it, so I have to cut it out.
Right.
So typically chickpeas or like just beans in general have lots of protein. Pink beans, black beans, chickpeas are the best though. And they're especially good for building muscle. So I always tell like people who are trying to build muscle and like go to the gym, just eat chickpeas instead of regular beans. Oatmeal has lots of protein in it. Quinoa has lots of protein. Brown rice, peanuts, almond butter, tofu, which I'm really not a fan of, but people like tofu.
Yeah, I tried it for a bit, didn't love it, so I was like, all right,
I
we'll
think
move
it's
on.
like, I don't know, the texture I'm not really a fan of.
Same, yeah.
Avocados, really good for protein, but also really good healthy fat, because a lot of the times, like if you are trying to shed fat, you want to replace that fat because you still need it for like overall health reasons. Avocados are a really good one. Chia seeds, oh gosh, there's so many. Flax seeds, any type of seeds in general, sunflower seeds, everything, kale, like actual plants have protein. So for me, I don't worry about that. I just eat what I want. And I keep a balanced diet. Obviously, I don't, crazy enough, you think vegan eats salad all the time. I hate salad. Like,
no,
I
actually,
don't eat salad at all.
so the first month of my veganism, I realized very quickly that there's a lot of bad vegan food out there.
There is. It's very tempting.
Which is also, it's like, I think that's why a lot of people also might be sort of, confused a little bit about it because they do assume, oh, you just eat greens and stuff and whatever. But no, you can actually fall into a really bad habit of like eating, fried this, fried that because it's vegan. And so the first month I was susceptible to all of that. And then the second month I was like, let me just try to like cut off certain things. Like for me personally, it was like fried foods and it was also the alternative meats. I mean, even though they're helpful, especially if you're transitioning into that lifestyle, I thought for me it was like I don't want to do this. I kind of want to like
you don't want to live off that.
I want to be way more plant-based, and by that I don't mean like having a fake burger. Even though I did have fake burgers, I kind of wanted to like not, rely on that too much. So this past November 1st was National Vegan Day.
It was.
And I've had some guests on the show that are strictly vegan. I've had Belenji Mena from Next Stop Vegan.
Oh, I love her.
I had Isana Batista from Woke Foods, who also pushes a vegan diet. And that's when I really started, and also a few other people. I had someone from La Masa restaurant, who was from Morris Park, who has a pretty extensive vegan menu.
Yeah.
And I had No Carne on. And I realized during the summer, I was like, there's really this movement happening in the Bronx that I feel like we only get that news in the Bronx. I don't feel like it's been expanded yet outside of the BX. Because again, people, you know, outside looking in would assume that we're super unhealthy. We don't know what we're doing when it comes to our diet. And in reality, there's so much going on here in the BX. And of course, social media is super important for you to put out your brand.
Right.
How did you use your social media to put out the message? And how do you continue to use your social media? Are you super active? What's the narrative that you try to push out there when it comes to eating healthy?
It's been a journey. Like I said, this is going on my 3rd year being a vegan. Initially, I think there was an issue with once you first go vegan, depending on why you're going vegan, which for me it was for the animals, believe it or not, and then it became about my health. When I first went vegan, I was enraged. I was actually really angry that society was functioning the way it was, and that people were just very oblivious to this kind of violence, that it just didn't sit right with me.
Yes.
So I was like that vegan who had a lot of rage.
Right.
The vegan that everybody hates. And I've had to really unlearn that and humble myself and realize that, do recognize that you were a part of that, and just because you're not, eating that way anymore doesn't mean that you're somehow self-righteous.
Right.
So after I started to unpack that, I realized that really what it comes down to is, how do we take back and decolonize our bodies and just really have ownership over what we eat, rather than just take whatever society gives us, because I don't think society really has our health in the best interest. So I try to promote that now. I just share a lot of educational stuff, inspirational things, stats, places to go eat. Now I'm very active. I'll go to a vegan restaurant, take pictures of my food and post it and be like, this was really good, check it out. Just sharing information in a way that doesn't shame people, because I realize that's not really effective.
Right.
Telling people that what you eat is terrible is not really gonna make them inspired, but rather telling them there's actually a really good alternative to that. We can go try it out, or you should try it out. This is where it is. It's actually this price. So I do that. And for World Vegan Day, I actually did a raffle and gave away a free copy of my book.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that was really cool. And for my anniversary coming up in January, I'm actually gonna do another raffle, but this time I'll be cooking a meal for someone on my Instagram.
That's very cool.
Yeah, totally free. Just have a conversation. They can watch and see how I make it, and just we can talk over a meal.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any maybe 1 or 2 spots in the Bronx that you would recommend someone who wants to have a full vegan meal to go to?
Honestly, Next Stop Vegan is the best place, especially because it still has the Latin, Dominican essence to it. And a lot of people are afraid that vegan food is bland, and that if they go vegan, they're just going to be eating food that doesn't taste good.
Right.
But these are people who have been there, who have the roots, the cultural roots that we want, and the taste buds are very similar to our own. So that was one place that I was shocked that they existed, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna keep coming here.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's the number one place that I rep. I don't think there's enough vegan food out here for me to actually point people in the right direction.
Right. Right.
But that's one place.
I hear you on that. I mean, again, I had mentioned the guests that we had on the show before, and those are all wonderful outlets, and I give extra credit to a restaurant like La Masa, which is on Morris Park Avenue, that they have enough vegan items that if you are a vegan and you're there with, let's say, friends who aren't, you don't feel ignored.
Right.
You actually have options.
Exactly.
But I do love Next Stop Vegan. I'm so happy that they have their physical location. I think it's super important.
And they've expanded, because they were only open once a week, and I was like, this is depressing. And they opened twice. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully they can just
great.
officially open up.
And the times that I've been there, it's always packed.
Yeah.
Which is so great.
And a lot of people who go there aren't even vegan, which kills me.
I know.
It's that just goes to show that people really are craving health. People in the Bronx aren't just these people who just don't care about themselves.
Right.
People are seeking that out, and it's just, it goes back to that lack of access. And that's kind of what angers me a bit, is that you have a community of people who want to invest in their health, but you're not giving them the tools to do so. So we have to kind of supplement that and overcompensate for it.
Absolutely.
As activists, as leaders, as entrepreneurs.
Absolutely, we do. So 3 years, I feel like maybe this question doesn't apply to you because you've been doing it for 3 years. But were there moments when you wanted to sort of just stop it? Or were you on this path where you were just feeling so amazing that, you know, you were like, I'm not even looking back? Or, you know, because again, you did say in the beginning it was a little bit of a struggle, but we're talking like, you know, 6 months in, a year in. Did you ever feel like, oh man, I'm craving something that I can't have anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's normal. If you spend 20 years of your life eating chicken, you know, your body is going to be like, oh, kind of miss that. And there, you know, there was times where I'm like, I kind of want chicken right now. Because that was what I loved. Like, I loved chicken. And so I would just go to a vegan spot that had something that tastes similar. I was craving that kind of flavor.
And the texture, the flavor.
Just like all of that. Because I was eating very healthily. Like, when you eat plant-based, I guess your body eventually starts to be like, okay, I kind of like miss these old ways. But there were times that I kind of questioned like being vegan, and I think that was when I wasn't seeing the physical, I wasn't reaping the actual physical benefits that I wanted, even though I felt them internally. And I was like, maybe I should just go back, like maybe everything will just fix itself, like I made a mistake, but I never went back, I just stuck with it. And then there was a time that I was like, I love my life. I even got a vegan tattoo, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that just goes to show that, you know, whether you're eating vegan or vegetarian or just in general, like, taking a new stance on your health, like it can really empower you and allow you to just free yourself and just like you start to love yourself more. And that's kind of what happened to me.
Congratulations on that. I really do give anyone kudos who lives that lifestyle.
Yeah.
Again, I'm an advocate for it, even though I don't do it. But I did reap the benefits for 2 months, and it was awesome. So congrats on that. Guys, stay connected with Darriel on Instagram at darry.mtb and follow her foodie page at Boogie Down Vegan Puerto Rican. To buy her book, visit payhip.com/b/QTMJ. We're taking a quick break. Foodie Down Bronx. We'll be right back.